Hello, everybody. It's Friday. Well, we've made it through the week. I'm here again with Brice. I know it's been, gosh, I think it was back in November we did a video together. And I know you're a busy gal. You're really busy with doing videos and you're, having roundtables and different things like that. But I really appreciate you coming back on with me. So please go ahead if you'd like to say anything to
I'm
everybody.
so excited to be here. I'm so excited. Yes, it's been crazy. I feel like I know was it Catherine Edwards and I think we're talking about the other day how time seems to be speeding up. Like the days seem to be a lot shorter. And so it's just wild times we're living through. So everybody watching knows that these are some wild times.
Oh gosh, yeah, that's right. If you're a little bit awake, at least, right?
This is either the greatest story ever told or a complete shit show. Either one, or maybe both. I don't know. So
That's pretty good. Oh gosh. So what have you been working on lately? I know you've had a ton of shows come out, videos, roundtables, and just I love actually we could start with actually the series that you're doing with Catherine. I love that.
That was
Tell us
Catherine's
about
idea.
that.
That was totally Catherine's idea. And I the minute she asked me if I would want to co-host with her with that series of Finding Your Passion, I was like, absolutely. And the thing is like, for all these few years of this like great awakening we've been through, it's been kind of doom and gloom. We've had to go through like the dark night of the soul as humanity, individually and collectively, about realizing the wool that's been pulled over our eyes and what's actually happening. And so it can be quite depressing at times to be awake. They say with every red pill there also comes a black pill, where you have to almost like mourn. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. It's not like you can go back to sleep. So you kind of have to mourn the passing of your old life. And now I think most of us watching are at this point where we would never want to go back to our old life anyway. But when she came up with this idea, I thought it was so great, because every single person, I believe anyway, that God gives every single person a life path. And we all have different passions for things. And it's not all the same stuff, because if it were all the same stuff, then that would make life frankly boring. That's why we all have different passions. And so we've been interviewing people who have platforms for now, just to get the series up and running, to talk about what gives them passion in life and what makes them really it's almost like in our world, our society today, we've been, especially in the Western world, we've been trained to kind of fall into the matrix where you have to work and make money, and like your passions should just be your hobby if you have time for it. When I don't think that's the way that God created us to be. And our first ever guest was Mornay from Aquarius Rising Africa. I just love him so much. He's just such a fantastic person, just such a bright light. And he's a fire spinner, amongst other things.
Wow.
And I would like stalk his Facebook page and look at these pictures, because I'm just used to working with him through shows, and I would see these pictures of him. And so when we decided to do this series, Mornay was the first person that came to mind, because just listening to him talk about doing it and working with an element of nature like fire that is so much stronger than us, but having that synchronicity with it. And of course, he's also an animator. He draws, he dances, he sings. Wow. And then we just did I know, he's fantastic. And we just did our second episode with David Zublik from the Dark Outpost.
Okay.
And he is the person that gave me a platform. I owe everything to David Zublik. I started going on his show like 2 years ago, and I've been a weekly guest, and he's the reason why my research is even out there. And he, of course, is one of the original people in this like truther news, alternative news. And for people who aren't familiar with him, he was on YouTube. He had like 200,000 subscribers, huge platform. And then of course he got flushed with all the big ones. And so he just created his own platform, the Dark Outpost TV. And he basically does 4-hour shows every day, which is like, in America, we have Good Morning America, the Today Show. They run for like 4 hours, and he does the same thing, but like real news, like the real news.
Right, the real stuff, right? Not the fake.
Yeah, he does different segments with different people, and I've and so I wanted to bring him on because he's been so instrumental in my path on YouTube and in this community, that for someone who's been doing this for so long, I mean, he started back in the 90s. And I know,
Oh my
Cheryl, this
heavens.
is exhausting, isn't it? Like having a channel is exhausting.
It is. It's a lot of
And
work.
it's a lot of work. And I don't think people I didn't realize it before I opened up my channel, like how much work goes into these channels. It's like a full-time job.
It is. Yes, very
And,
much so.
and even if you're working a full-time job on top of it, like it's a lot of work. And so for David to be in this world for over 20 years now consistently,
Wow.
obviously there's a passion there. And so we just interviewed him. And I think this coming up week, we're going to have Liz, my friend Liz from TikTok, is going to be on, Liz. And,
Oh, yes, yes.
and she's got her nice
Oh,
little t-shirt business now. And so we're going to bring her on. And so it was just such a great idea. And
awesome.
it's just motivating to hear people talk about what they love and how they ignite what they love. And I think a lot of people are afraid of failure. That's kind of our ego. We get afraid to fail. And so sometimes as adults, we won't even try things because we're so afraid of failure. But when you fail at something, that's where you learn and you grow
Right.
even stronger. And so I'm hoping that this series, again, it was all Catherine's idea. I'm hoping that it will help people, inspire people as we go into the new earth to find what it is that they love to do and
Right.
run with it.
Yeah, I agree with it. I mean, I love the idea. And I think I agree with you too. It's like, I think, God's given us passions, but he's given us giftings and talents to be able to share with other people and to bless others. And so I love that idea. Plus it's so encouraging because we need positive things going on because there's, all the yucky stuff that we have to deal with. So that's a great idea. So you're hoping to do one a week then?
One a week, yes. And we are also taking in, I know Catherine's more doing this than me. We're taking in from our viewers, people that don't have platforms that want to come on and talk about their passions. We're not necessarily plugging businesses. We will if it's your business, but it's more about,
Right.
and we're going to do the first few episodes we're going to do with people that people already know just to get the series up and running. But we are going to be taking on people who don't have a platform as well to come on and talk about what it is they love to do and what gives them passion. I mean, that's why we get up in the morning, it's like,
Mm-hmm.
there's that rock and roll song that everybody's working for the weekend. And why
Right.
are we working for the weekend? Like, why can't we
Right.
love Monday too? Why can't we love Tuesday too? Well, it's because we've been conditioned to be in this world where we have to like suffer to survive. And
Right.
and we should be in a position where we're doing what we love to do because that's what God created us to do. I mean, how many accountants out there are actually really badass healers and they don't even know it?
That's true. Because it's like we've been pigeonholed into these certain jobs and careers, and it's like, but I really enjoy this, so it's like people have all these hidden talents and passions, and but they're just so used to the 9 to 5, I got to do this thing.
Yeah. And even like
That's
with the arts, I mean, I think Catherine mentioned this, and this was kind of the same with me growing up, was they started giving less funding to the arts because no one
right.
took the arts seriously. But the arts are that's how we survive. I mean, that's what gives our soul like comfort. And
Right.
it's I mean, that's why we still study Shakespeare, whoever Shakespeare was. That's a topic for another day. But
Right.
the writing, it's even though the stories take place so many hundreds of years ago, the themes, the feelings, the emotions of the characters are the same emotions that we still experience today as human beings. Don't change.
Right.
Our world changes, but we don't. We still experience heartache, jealousy, love, excitement. And so art is what helps us live those emotions sometimes. And the fact that they've even like defunded that from us and tried to take that away from us as just something extra that's not really important is very dehumanizing for humanity. And so how many
Right.
people out there are working these jobs that they're doing just to survive, just to put food on the table, but deep down they're incredible painters or incredible
Right.
artists or writers. I even
Right.
said, I think with Mornay, I even talked about so many children come into this world and they have these what we call wild imaginations.
Mm-hmm.
And people will try to like kind of beat the imagination out of them. But it's like, no, the kids know that it's fiction. The kids know that it's an imagination. But what if those kids are going to be great novelists one day?
Right. Right.
What they know they're pretending, they know it's not real, but instead of trying to take that away from them, why not encourage them to write stories, you know, or to like, if God gave you that ability to see a world and create a world that doesn't exist in order to help someone through art, through writing, then why wouldn't we encourage that as humanity? And so
Right.
it's kind of exciting if we're walking into this new earth, that this might be a reality, where
Right.
people are really going to get to do what they love. I know I have friends who are like hairdressers, and from the
Mhm.
time they were a kid, they loved styling hair. They loved cut. And I don't know if you guys have ever watched people do like a woman's haircut. They're like architects for the way that,
Yes.
I mean, that is a skill that you are either born with or not, because wow. I couldn't do it.
Me neither.
Holy crap. But you know, like, that's an art form in itself. And so
Right.
encouraging people to actually follow their passion and
Right.
to figure that out. And a lot of people will say, you know, well, I'm older, I can't remember what I used to do as a child. Sure, you can. Just sit there and think about your childhood, you know, and what did you do when you were playing? What was, you know, go back to that. And that's who
Right.
you are.
Right.
So
Yeah, it's sad that they've taken, I guess they've taken it out of the schools too. Like people need to be able to express themselves, and that's so important.
so important.
Especially, yeah, like the kids aren't able to, and I've homeschooled my kids, but my youngest son, he's really good with inventing things and creating, and he's constantly doing that. I encourage him. I mean, we do sit down and do some book work in school, but with the homeschooling, we've been able to be flexible with that, and he's able to create, and he's very mechanical, and he can fix things and take things apart and put them back together. And I just sit there like, he didn't get any of that from me. I am not
God
good
bless
at that.
him. I'm so bad at technology. Like, I'm literally like an 80-year-old woman when it comes to technology. So God bless him. I'm amazed that I can actually copy and paste things. Like, that's how
Right.
computer illiterate I am. And so God, see, again, that's what makes the world go round though. We all have these
Right.
God-given talents that need to be explored. In yoga, in the Bhagavad Gita, there's a topic called Dharma that's spoken about. And I love the Dharma. It's your life path. That, and I grew up Presbyterian, and they would call it your divine purpose, which is the same thing. And
Right.
so you have a dharma, you have a path that you are supposed to be on that is God given to you.
Mhm.
And I believe part of in my opinion, part of the plan by the bad guys was to derail us from our God-given paths, because it's God-given.
Right. Right. And you don't mess with his plan.
No. And you know, and I think that I'm just so grateful to be alive for this. I mean, we were talking off camera about the tower moment that we know is coming. We know it's coming. It's going to be rough for a little while there as everything has to crumble, but at least we're prepared. But I'm so grateful to be on the earth right now and to experience this transition.
Yes, it's incredible. It will be incredible.
I know.
Yeah.
Think about all of our like grandparents that just missed it,
Oh, yeah.
you know. And I'm sure they're able to watch from the other side of the veil. I'm sure they're still around, but to actually be here and experience this is, even though it's stressful and it can be depressing at times, it is quite a blessing.
Right. Yeah,
You
I
know?
agree. Yeah, there are times when I sit there and I think, is this really happening?
Same, like,
I'm doing all this research. I'm like, is this really for real? Am I losing my mind?
you know what? It's so funny because I've said the same thing too. I'm like, are we in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest? Like, are we all just like going batshit crazy right now? But
Right.
it's you know, they say though that if you have to ask if you're crazy, you probably aren't.
Oh, okay. Well, that's good to know.
Because the crazy person doesn't ask if they're crazy.
Well, that's pretty good. Okay, well,
So
remember
for
that.
anybody listening, if you sat back and said, "Am I crazy?" You're probably not, because you actually asked that. So
So you actually asked the question.
I know.
Oh my heavens, that's pretty good. Well, that's awesome. I love that series. I'm looking forward to each week watching that. That'll be great. That's awesome. And then I love your roundtables that you have. I've seen the ones with Catherine, and I'm not probably going to say her name right. It starts with an M.
Medina.
Yes. Oh my goodness,
Lovely.
she's a lovely person too. Oh my, so
She's
many neat people.
lovely. I know she's one of our Australian warriors down there. There's a few, Tamara, David Cohen, there's a few of them
Oh,
down there. God bless them, because if we think we have it rough here in America,
Wow.
we got
Yeah.
nothing on them down in Australia. But Medina is just such a beautiful soul. She's just
Oh,
all
yes.
full of light. Just
Yes. And Tamara too, both of them. Oh my goodness. I love watching them on your shows. They're really good. Really good. Yeah. That's awesome. And then Stephanie and Taylor.
yes.
Enjoy those.
Yes, they're special girls. Stephanie and Taylor and I, we came together under very weird circumstances. It was definitely very divine. And you know, when you meet people and you feel like you've known them forever, I'm pretty sure I've spent many lifetimes with both of them. And yeah, we've been doing once a week shows because Stephanie has stepped into her own as a incredible reader. I mean, incredible. She basically talking about finding your passion. Like she grew up and I think she was born Catholic. She might have to correct me, but then she kind of went through all the different flavors of Christianity to try to find the right fit. And so she's been through them all.
Right.
And for a very long time, she was very much against divination because of the way that the church kind of trains you and brainwashes you to kind of give up anything that's going to give you sovereignty in your relationship with the divine.
Right.
And when she started to awaken, she picked up tarot cards, and she literally, I've watched her since I've known her, went from being against them to all of a sudden within months being able to read fast and read accurately.
Wow.
And so it's definitely apparent to me that she's done this in many lifetimes before, and she's glowing now. You can tell her whole physicality has changed. Like she looks happy and she's helping people. Of course, Stephanie is she is the person that has started support groups for people.
I saw that.
And I've sat in a few of those groups that she has, and it's so powerful. And God is using her in such a mighty way, and just to observe that. And that's one thing that I've realized these last few weeks, you know, when this whole thing started and we all started reading the military back channel, which you guys know what I'm referring to. I think we all kind of thought that we were going to eat popcorn and just watch it go down. I don't think we realized that we are the storm.
Mm-hmm.
We're in this movie.
Yeah.
And it's not, you know, Mr. T and the Kennedys, they were the front guys, but this last battle, it's us. And so to see someone that's just like me, I consider myself just to be a regular person, you know.
Yeah, me too.
Even though we have platforms, we're still just regular people. Stephanie as well. And to see how much someone like her, who put herself out there, and all of a sudden she's opening up these support groups. She has a women's group, a men's group, and then a deprogramming group of people to come together and just be each other's friends and to talk openly on these Zooms, people that have never met each other all over the world.
Oh, wow.
So powerful. She's just such a bright little light. Of course, Taylor is, she's trained in the Beyond Quantum. So she's able to take people into almost like that. I hope I'm explaining this right. Sorry, Taylor, if I'm not. Almost into a hypnotic state where they can start to channel. And it kind of communicates with our higher self. So gives them more clarity as to what their path is. And she's just amazing. I've watched her do some channeling before, and I was in tears watching her do some stuff. So these are powerful, powerful people that, again, are just normal people, you know?
Yeah. And like you said, I'm interested in all that. I'm willing to learn. I was taught that stuff you're supposed to stay away from, that it's, you know, bad news, and, you know, that it's okay, well, that's part of the matrix. So I need to rethink that. So I'm willing to learn about it and try to understand it, even though it's foreign to me. So I think that's important to remember, that we need to, you know, be open and have an open mind about things and try to understand. So.
And isn't that so funny? I've said this a lot, that it's so easy for us going through this process, or for people. This wasn't really hard for me because I had my fair share of hiccups with the church. I kind of already thought the church was a little bit corrupt. But a lot of people, you know, it's easy to see the government, medicine, school, all that kind of stuff as being maybe a little bit corrupt, or a lot corrupt. But when it comes to the church, people are having a really hard time breaking through that matrix. And I've said this so many times, it's you have to then ask yourself, is your relationship with the organization, or is it with God? Because the two are very different. And
Right.
God, like my whole going through the missing books of the Bible, looking into King James, like all the stuff I've done, looking into the corruption of the church, it's only strengthened my relationship with God.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's made me my faith even stronger. I
Right.
absolutely will not go back to a church, but the love I feel from God is so much stronger,
Right.
deconstructing all this stuff and all these rules that the church has given you, that aren't necessarily so. And you have to understand, for people like the church, especially here in America, it's a 501c3. That's a
Right.
nonprofit governmental organization. So what does that mean? It's part of the government. What is the
Mm-hmm.
government?
Excuse me.
Government is cabal. That's so
That's
it's
right.
all. And if and I'm not saying that all pastors or preachers are bad. No, no, there's
Right.
so many pastors and preachers out there that really have very good intentions, but
Right.
they've been trained in a
Mm-hmm.
seminary school. And
Right.
if you follow the money in seminary school, it's going to lead you right back to this nefarious group of people.
Right.
Um,
Right.
we know that the Bible has been altered and changed, the canonized Bible. And this is not, people
Right.
will get upset and say, well, do you believe the Bible's the word of God? And I'll say, well, yeah, but we haven't seen the Bible.
Right.
We haven't seen it.
I've heard somebody say where it is the truth, but it's not the whole truth. Like we don't have the whole
No,
thing. We're just
we don't
part
have
of
the
it.
whole thing. And in fact,
Yeah.
even just looking at the canonized Bible, 66 books, there's 777 books, guys. Like,
Right.
that's not even a fraction of the
That's
story.
crazy. Yeah, it is.
How many people, how many prophets, how many people wrote scripture that we just haven't seen? Like, even going through the missing books of the Bible, there are only about 45 books out there that are available to us right now. And the only reason why they're available is because they were found in excavation sites. The
Right.
Vatican hasn't released this information. So even with what we do have of the missing books of the Bible, there's still a plethora of gospels that just have never been read before. I'm curious, what
Me
do
too.
they say? I mean,
Me
people
too.
who have nothing to hide nothing. So
Exactly.
if there wasn't something super potent in
Right.
those gospels, then they wouldn't be hiding them.
Yes,
And
exactly.
something I found, I did a long time ago, I did a huge like deep dive into kind of the Federal Reserve, not just looking at the money, but everything else, the tentacles that it extends out to. And for the United States, the Federal Reserve was also when public schools were created. Before then, there was no public school. So what does that mean? The government then took control of our education. Well,
Mhm.
before then, children were learning Greek, they were learning Coptic Egyptian, they were learning Latin in
Wow.
schools. So what does that mean? That they could actually read these old scriptures in the Vatican Library. But now, I mean, if someone were to give me the key to the Vatican Library right now, I just give it back, because
Right.
I need a translator. Like I don't
Right.
speak Coptic Egyptian. Like,
Oh,
I
come
don't.
on, Brice.
So,
Brice,
I
really?
don't
Come
know
on.
Aramaic. I can't speak Aramaic. So I would need someone to come in there and translate for me. So
That's right.
so they took that ability away from us too. So
Right.
if you go back and look, you do have to hand it to them. I mean, they were quite sly, and they did this. They were very patient, and they did this very slowly, to get us. It's like boiling that frog, And
Right.
so,
Right.
so yeah. And I do challenge if people are having a hard time with letting go of the church, because I do believe that the church will fall as well, along with everything else, that it's going to fall.
Mhm.
It's too corrupt. I mean, even the
Right.
church that I grew up, the Presbyterian church, I look back in my memory of the sanctuary. I can't tell you how many Illuminati signs are in there.
Oh gosh, yeah, because I was raised Catholic. I've been out for a long time, but yeah, I looking at that now, it's and I never understood all the rituals and why we had to do this and say this and and all I never and I was like I was always trying to find like I felt a connection to God and I was always trying to find is Jesus really here? I always was questioning that like I don't know if he's here, and then we go to other churches and then when we left, we go to different ones and it's like wow, I really feel Jesus' spirit here at this church. Some of them just seemed really, like the spirit was there, kind of thing. But it's, yeah, like you said, you look around, I think now about the altar and all the different symbols, and it's like, Oh,
Yes.
I'm so glad God took us away from there.
I mean, once you see it, you cannot unsee it. And
Right.
my grandmother passed away back in October. And when we were at her funeral, I was getting like pissed off at her funeral. First of all, my grandmother believed in reincarnation. She hid books on reincarnation under the bed for my grandfather. She was very open-minded. She
Hmm.
was a cool lady. She was very supportive of my travels to India. She went to church every Sunday, but she had her own views
Right.
and tried to teach me to meditate when I was 8. Well, sitting at this funeral, I'm listening to the pastor kind of do the show of the funeral. And
Right.
all it was about, not once did he mention any of her children. Not
Oh,
once did he mention her grandchildren. Not once did he mention her great grandchildren. All it was about was her being a church member. And basically, it felt like they were manipulating her descendants to give money back to the church from
oh
their
my
estate.
gosh. Oh,
That's
wow.
what it felt like. And I kept sitting there and I'm looking around at like my cousins and my aunts and uncles, and I'm like, this is BS. I'm like, is nobody seeing? But when you're
Right.
so in it, you
Right.
don't see it.
It's
I
so
was like,
ingrained and brainwashed in you. You don't,
yes.
yeah.
I'm like, this is a CULT. I know we can't say that word on YouTube, but this is what CULTs do.
Right.
It's all about the organization.
Hmm.
And now that she's gone and my grandfather's gone, they're not going to be getting that money each month from them.
Right.
So now they're going to try to manipulate the children to give money in their state of grief.
Yes.
That's so effed up. Like, that is so screwed up.
Yes.
That's not compassion.
Mm-mm.
And the fact that and this is a pastor that had known her for a while. And I'm like, literally gonna be like, you narcissistic a-hole. Like, what?
Yeah,
You
that's
can't even say anything about her at her funeral.
right.
Like, this is, and I driving back home, I was like, I am so glad that I cannot wait to see this organization crumble, because I don't see God here.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
You know?
Exactly. Yeah, because my grandmother, she was Catholic. She was Catholic and she went to Catholic school and all that kind of stuff. And when she passed, she had in her will to have I think it was 50 masses said, because she was so brainwashed into thinking to get her out of purgatory. And then the masses, I think, were like $100 a piece or more. So it's all about the money. And I'm like,
All about the money.
that just makes me so sad that my grandmother believed that she had to buy her way out of purgatory. It's like you just don't, the brainwashing and the sickness of it. You just like, it's just this awful. And it just makes me so sad she felt that way
Well, I'm
or
so
believed
glad.
that.
And I believe that when she passed, she probably saw the light of God right then and there and walked right into his
Freedom.
arms. So yeah. So
Yes.
hopefully that fear was taken away from her immediately once
Right.
she went to the other side of the veil, because that is so sad. And that is nothing that was preached about by Jesus. Nothing.
No.
Never said that.
Yeah,
You know,
it just still made me, I still think about it today. I'm just like, wow, my poor grandmother, because she was so into fear, and they controlled her when she was a little kid all the way till she was in her 80s when she passed. But it's just like, oh wow, it just,
so
for her
heartbreaking.
to not really know God because of all that, just it makes me mad too, because I'm like, this just makes me so angry. This is wrong.
Yeah. I'm so sorry. Yeah, that makes me mad as well, because I want people to know that you don't need an organization to know God.
Right.
Genesis 1:3 says, God said, let there be light. And this is one of the most, I've said this on so many shows, but it was so like, holy crap, when I read this, when I was looking through the Hebrew word for light in my studies, and light meant back then divine spark.
Oh, I think you told me that. That's beautiful. Oh my heavens.
So beautiful. And so God said, let there be a divine spark. They weren't talking about the sun so you could see. He was talking about your divine spark. And I know in conception, when the sperm and the egg meet, there's a spark.
Yeah, and I've seen too where it's called Vesica Pisces. I think if I'm saying that right. It's like, it has to do with sacred geometry. I'm still researching some of it, but it's like when you draw the circle and then you draw the other one, they come together. I don't know. I'm trying to piece it all together and connect the dots. So I don't know if I'm making any sense.
No, that sounds interesting. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're so special. Like every human being is so special. You don't need that pastor or that preacher.
Right.
You already have God inside of you. That spark is still there.
Right.
You don't have to go searching for God. You don't have to go to the temple or the church or the mosque. You could just sit down in your bathroom and you could be on the toilet and find God. Like, he's always there. Like, literally, like, you are his child. And
Right.
and God, if God didn't have a purpose for you, he wouldn't have given you that divine spark. And so and it makes me so sad that people diminish themselves because they've been told. I mean, that's a key to an abusive relationship, is making someone feel like they are not good enough,
Right.
without the supervision or the permission of another human being. I'm sorry, that pastor was not there when you were given life.
Right.
The pastor wasn't there.
That's true.
That was you and God.
Right.
Like, even when you came out of your mother's womb and you took your first breath,
Right.
the doctor didn't give you that breath. The
Mm-mm.
pastor didn't give you that breath. Your parents didn't even give you that breath. God
Right.
gave you that breath. God breathed life into man, and man stood up.
Right.
The fact
Yep.
that you're able to breathe, that's God.
Amazing.
So I hope that people find that liberation. And I've
Yes.
noticed that people who have woken up to the matrix of the church are starting to look more alive and look more liberated, because all of a sudden they're not bound by fear. I mean, fear creates loosh, which is what the demons feed off of. That's why they want to keep you in fear. You know, the original scriptures, Jesus spoke about reincarnation in the original scriptures.
Wow.
So it's mentioned a lot in the missing books of the Bible. And of course they changed that because they wanted you afraid.
Right.
Mortality.
And then we've been taught too that like reincarnation is part of like this new age stuff, you know, and it's like, okay, but if we don't know the whole truth.
No, it's been around for a very long time. And in fact, even in the Bible itself, they took a lot of it out, but you can still see some parts when Jesus says to his disciples, "Who do they say I am?" And they say, "Some say you're Isaac." Or Isaiah, sorry, Isaiah.
Okay.
And so many I names. And if these characters from the Old Testament, allegedly, now I think some of the Bible books are totally out of order, but these characters lived a lot long before Jesus was on the earth in a human form. So if they were saying they thought that's who he was, that's telling you that they were being taught about reincarnation.
Oh, okay. Wow. All right. I didn't know that.
Yeah, that's because that was part of their culture.
Right.
And you know, I think we forget too, we all, I mean, it's human nature. We're Westerners, and so we see everything from a Western perspective. But Jesus wasn't from the West.
Right.
He wasn't a Westerner. So we have to understand that he was coming from an Eastern philosophy. So
very good. Yeah. Hey, I'm learning.
You know, and the truth about Jesus's life and Mary Magdalene's life and all these people's lives are just so much more fascinating
Yes.
than the crap they gave us. You know, Mary Magdalene fascinates me so much. I mean,
Oh, wow.
You know, we were taught that she was just this prostitute, and we know that's not true. She was his wife, and she came from a high priestess family. She herself was a priestess. And I know that's going to ruffle some feathers, but Jesus and Mary were the Christ consciousness of divine feminine, divine masculine. And of course, we have, for a bad group of people, they want to distort that. And so they're
change it all.
Yeah, to create imbalance. And we see that in the Bible too, when Jesus is anointed. Who does his anointing? Mary does. And you don't have someone anoint you unless you believe that they're more spiritually apt than you are. And so Jesus allowing her to anoint him showed that he had great respect for her position in the priestess class. They worked together. They missioned together. And I don't know why people get offended by that, because especially women, it's like literally the Magdalene Jesus is showing you that you matter as a woman. You're not just a walking body for a man to use. You are literally just as equal. And just so I don't know why women get offended by that, but you know, that's the truth we're walking into, is the rise of the Magdalene again, that divine feminine meeting that divine masculine in equal harmony and equal balance.
Right. I mean, I think it's fascinating. And then you look at all the times, Jesus talked to women in the Bible, and, brought them into his group. And,
He anointed them
it's
to teach.
fascinating.
We think that Jesus had 12 disciples. Again, that's the cabal. That's satanic. That. And
Right.
the number 12 isn't bad. Like, we have to
Right.
remember that God created everything. The cabal just inverts it.
Right.
But they brought it to 12 because they use 12 for nefarious purposes. Like, we have the 12-step program, the 12 grades in school. Like, you see it everywhere.
Oh,
12,
yeah, I didn't think about all that.
yeah, it's all over our money, the 12 different pillars. Like, they're using it
Oh,
for
wow.
spell casting. We just laugh at them, like, like, really, like, you're like, that's stupid. Like, we're going to take 12 back and we're going to anoint it back to being a good holy number again. But in the missing books of the Bible, Jesus had about 70 disciples.
Oh, wow.
And over half of them were women
Mm-hmm.
that he anointed to teach. And
Awesome.
in the Gospel of the Holy 12, which is actually the Gospel of the Nazarene Way, the original gospel, there's a scene where there's a woman, Jesus is teaching, and there's a woman sitting at his feet, like, listening to him teach. And her sister comes in and gets so upset because the sister listening to him teach needs to be in the kitchen with her, helping make dinner.
Mm-hmm.
And Jesus stops her and says, no, her position is here to listen and learn too. So he was very much for women. He very much wanted women to be a part of the Acts of Philip, which is another missing book of the Bible that I loved because of Mary of Bethany. Mary of Bethany, you do see her mentioned a few times in the canonized Bible, but she was Philip's wife. And this woman was sassy. Like, she was hysterical. The Acts of Philip, she is a sassy broad. She reminds me of, like, a woman at a cocktail party that knows all the gossip. I mean, if you read the Acts of Philip, I fell in love with her. Like, Philip was very shy and very quiet, and she had to basically light a fire under his butt just to get him to, like, help her teach the ministry. I mean, I just loved her. I was like,
oh, that's fantastic.
She was the woman that everybody wanted to go to the party with because she was funny and she knew everything, and she probably would have been drinking at the bar. I just loved her in the Acts of Philip. She cracked me up. Like, I wasn't as interested in the actual Acts of Philip, the miracles. I wanted to read more about Mary of Bethany because that woman was sassy.
Oh, I like that. That's fun.
So, and it's kind of fun that these women from the Bible that play just as much of a part as any of the men are now kind of getting their time to shine now.
Yes.
It's back up again. So
I like that. That's good. That's very good.
So Mary of Bethany, if you're listening, you're the party girl. And I would love to go to a bar with you one day because you are hysterical.
That is so fun. Oh my golly, that's really funny. Yeah, it's been interesting. I've been looking just like actually through the Bible, just like in Genesis, to see where it's been edited, and it's interesting because you have like the story of creation, but then it starts over again. So I noticed that, and then I also noticed where they were talking about Cain and like his family, and then it just stops, and then it starts back with like Adam and Eve again. So I don't know. I'm just looking through it just to see if you can find. It's interesting to do that.
If you read the book of Jubilees, which you could just Google, there's a PDF of it. The Ethiopian church still has the book of Jubilees in their canonized Bible, but you can actually read, because Jubilees is considered like a Genesis. And you can actually read the two side by side, and you can literally see where they've edited stuff out. First of all, a lot of the women, as you start to get down the line from Adam and Eve, you don't hear the wives' names that often, but in the book of Jubilee, they'll tell you all the wives' names. Now, I can't pronounce their names because they're wild names. It's like just a bunch of like letters and markings, but there's one that was called Susan. I remember that because I was like, oh, I can pronounce this one.
Yeah, there you go.
But, and it also gets into like the truth behind Sodom and Gomorrah, which I have to be careful about what we say on YouTube, but we all have been told a particular story regarding Sodom and Gomorrah. That's not true. What was happening in Sodom and Gomorrah is the same thing that was happening on those islands.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
AKA the island that was owned by Jeff, we'll just say.
Right.
Same thing.
Right.
And Book of Jubilees goes into details about what they were doing. And when you read it, you're like, oh, this makes way more sense. The
Oh,
consenting adults having relationships, that, if it's a consenting adult, there's no terror there, but this makes
wow.
sense.
Okay. Yeah. I see what you're
So
saying.
they took that out. They didn't want you to think that was happening. You also see a lot more with Dina and her daughter, who ends up being Joseph's wife when Joseph sent to Egypt. You start to see, and that's why Joseph's children were anointed as part of the tribes as well, which then we also now, or at least I'm starting to believe, that the tribes of Israel are actually galactic. It's more
Hmm.
of a galactic story
Okay.
and I know some people are going to find this to be absurd, but
Well,
it's just
anything's
something to
possible
consider.
now.
I know, right? At this point, like it's like opening up Pandora's box. Like the minute you start to question some truths, you then have to question all the
Oh,
truths. And
yes.
if you had
Yes.
told me all of them, yes, if you had told me 6 years ago that I would have been like questioning the earth, I would have told you were crazy. And now, honestly, I have no idea what we're standing on. I
Right.
don't know
Me
what it
neither.
looks.
Me neither.
You could, it might be a freaking square floating out in space. I don't know. I'd be like, sure, sounds good to me, because we know that organization that is, I'm trying to be careful what I say, that looks into the stars. We know they've been lying to us for a real long time. So
Yep.
no idea what our earth actually looks like, none whatsoever.
Nope.
And
Me neither.
if I really think about it for long enough, it starts to freak me out a little bit. But you know what? I've been fine for 38 years, so it's all good. So, and we know, I mean, Carrie Cassidy was one of the first to say that we have like multiple, our DNA is from multiple galactic constellations. Your
Oh,
DNA is
wow.
Palladian, Lyran, like there's so many different DNA strands you have in you, but of course they tell us that we have 97% junk DNA. That's BS. God doesn't make junk.
No, he
So
doesn't. Nope.
what they don't want us to know these things, that our DNA is actually quite unique. And we talked a lot lately about the Lyran group, which is the lion, which is the tribe of Judah, which even in
Right.
Revelation it talks about the Lion of Judah. And I kind of put two and two together, because we know Lyrans have people who originate from the Lyran constellation have a golden hue about them.
Huh.
Other constellations have like more of a blue hue or a purple hue, but the Lyran group has like an orange. Think about the lion, the orangey group. And what did they call Mr. T?
Oh yeah, Orange Man bad.
What were they were trying to get you to not look at his coloring, but what they ended up doing was make us pay attention. It backfired. We LOL, the devil.
Right.
You silly little devil, like you silly Satanist. It didn't work. It made us pay attention more to the fact that his coloring was a little bit different than the rest of us. And I've noticed a lot of people on YouTube, especially, getting a golden hue about them as well. And that's going to start to happen, is we're going to start to kind of find that tribe. The tribes weren't lost. They were never lost. We just were not told who they really were. We were the ones that were lost, not necessarily the tribes, if that makes sense. But we know at the end of times they come together again. So, and we're starting to, the veil's thinning. We're starting to see more galactic family out there. And how I know a lot of Christians have a hard time with that. They want to think that Earth is the only place and aliens aren't real. But I mean, the God that I believe in is so magnificent.
Right.
I can't be narcissistic enough to think we're it. Of course, there's other life out there created by God.
Well, yeah, and plus we think about it's part of the matrix, it's part of what we've been conditioned to believe, and it's like we can't put God in a box.
No.
He's the creator of everything and anything, and anything's possible. So yeah, putting him in a box is not something we should be doing.
And making people think that that we are just it, like we're just a product of an accident, scientific combustion, and there's nothing else out there. That gives you no point to your life.
Right. Oh my golly.
Yeah, and that you are part of this galactic grouping of a bunch of different, I don't even know what the ETs want to call themselves, not human. I don't know. Like, sorry guys, I don't know what you call yourselves. But we'll just say entities for now, to know that they're all out there as well. It's like, wow, this obviously didn't happen by accident. There was obviously a plan here, and we're part of that plan.
Right.
And I know that Earth is one of the hardest like schools to go through as a soul. And so I know that we have a lot of help right now from the off-worlders that are cheering us on. And that's kind of sweet.
That's nice to know there's more people in our corner.
It's kind of sweet guys. They're fighting as well. They, this is not just us on this plane of existence that are fighting, but they are also fighting in different dimensions. You could probably feel it sometimes around you, that it's all points go. And so they're also battling it out like we are. And you look at the archangels out there, just the regular angels. I mean, so much. I mean, how fantastic is that? I mean, that's not an accident.
Right.
That's not just an accidental combustion. That's purposeful. And the same God that made the Rocky Mountains made you.
Right.
So don't feel like you're not special.
Exactly.
You're very special.
Yes, each person. Yep, is very special. Yeah, that's good to know. It kind of is a relief to know that there's more out there that are fighting this battle too, because yeah.
I wish we could see it. Like, how amazing. Well, we were talking about that before we signed on about I'm just waiting for the alien invasion. If you see the alien invasion on the news, it's probably fake, but I really would like to see the real one. I would really like to see how cool would that be to like step out and actually see.
That would be
everything. I mean, some people might crap their pants, but I might be one of them. I don't know, but
or pass out or whatever. Yeah.
Yes, but that would be so. I mean, to realize how special you are. There's actually a war being fought over your soul right now. That's how special you are.
Wow, that's incredible to think about that. That's a good point. Really good point.
Yeah.
Definitely.
So don't let that pastor, that preacher make you think that there's anything to fear.
Right, exactly. That's
you're
awesome.
Protected and you're loved and you're on purpose.
For sure. That's right.
Every freckle, every cell, every piece of hair on your head was meticulously designed by the same person, the same entity. He's not a person, the same entity that designed the Rocky Mountains.
Yeah, and then you think about the beautiful flowers and plants,
all the animals, everything. The Sahara Desert, the same, I mean, how unbelievable is that? The same creator who made the Sahara Desert also made you. That's how special you are.
Right. You think about how complex our bodies are and the different systems and just, our brain. And it's just, you sit and you think, wow.
Yeah. Don't let any preacher take that away from you. Like you have a birthright.
Right.
You're a child of God. You're as the original Christians were the Essenes. The Essenes meant children of the light.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
Like, how amazing is that to be a child of the light? That's what you are. God said, let there be light. Genesis 1:4. God saw the light, saw it was good, and separated it from the darkness. You're not one of them.
Right.
You're not part of that group.
That's right.
You are an inheritor of God's kingdom. You have the light.
And you think about the word, and you think about the word light and how many times it's in the Bible that we have,
Yeah.
And that's, and think about it that way. That's really amazing, to think about, because Jesus says you're the light of the world. And, he talks,
You're the divine spark. And the light, I've talked about this a lot, people who are just first starting to wake up, they fall into this trap of wanting to get rid of everything that's been corrupted, like pyramids, the 12, like all that stuff that they've corrupted. But I'm going to remind everybody that the darkness cannot create anything. Think about photosynthesis. Think about just in nature. The darkness cannot create anything. All it can do is take from the light and invert it. So all these things like pyramids, like all these things, those were originally ours. Those were originally divination tools. Hello, all the prophets in the Bible use divination tools. They all use divination tools, but we can't.
Right.
That's hypocrisy in itself. So what is prayer? Prayer can be a form of channeling.
Oh yeah.
That's true. So they've taken everything and they've inverted it. So we're going to take it back.
Even like with the gematria that I've been doing and learning, I learned from Tom numbers and all that. It's like at first when I started doing that, I was like, oh, I don't know, and then I started doing it, I was like, wow, this is incredible, this is amazing, and then even I've been looking into a little bit like biblical numerology and trying to understand what each of the numbers means, and that's incredible too. So it's like we've been taught to stay away from that stuff because of that's new age or weird or whatever, and it's like, no, wait a minute. So like what you're saying, everything's been inverted.
Yes, and they've done it intentionally. Yes, because they don't want you to know. They don't want you to have. They don't want you to know how special you are, because they're afraid of you. And if
Right.
you knew how special you were, I mean, look what's happening now. I'm sure whoever's left of this dark, evil group are probably terrified right now.
Mm-hmm.
They're terrified. They know that those of us who've awoken to this madness are not going to go back to sleep.
Right.
And I would guess that they're probably way more awake, whether they're vocal or not, than there are asleep at this moment. I that's what I would guess.
Right.
I have hope for humanity. So yeah, they're terrified. And if you want to look even deeper into like tarot cards, astrology, and what happened, then just look at the Hess Act of World War II.
Hmm.
That was a decision made by the Pope and the Nazi leaders to basically start preaching that astrology, divination was all sinful. This was the Hess Act. You guys can look this up. And
Okay.
it was so that people, they were using all these tools and they didn't want human beings to know about it. They didn't want human beings to be able to have this access to the divine.
Right.
So, because they wanted to be able to one up the human race. So basically, if you are still believing that tarot cards, astrology, all this stuff is of the devil, you're basically following Nazi propaganda. That's Nazi propaganda from
Wow.
the Hess Act. You can look this stuff up.
That's yeah, I definitely want to do that.
Yeah, it's pretty. Once you see it, you're like, holy crap! Like they've literally brainwashed generations now to believe that this stuff is bad, when literally it's just a tool to communicate with the divine.
Right.
They use their tools to communicate with the dark underworld, but we
Right.
use the same tools to communicate with God. And how do you know if the message is good or not? Well, is it asking you to hurt anybody? Is it asking you, or is it something that's encouraging to you and helpful? Then you know whether it's good or bad.
Right.
My God doesn't ask us to do anything to anybody else that's going to hurt them or take
Right.
away their free will. So,
Right. And I think it's important to do this, like you're looking at the intention of why you're using those things.
yeah,
I think that's like the key to it. What's the intention here?
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's
And
key.
there's prayers, like everyone I know who uses tools always does specific prayers before using their tools to make sure that it is for the highest good and that they're channeling through source, which is God.
Right.
There are, you might not see it on the shows because a lot of times they don't sit on the shows and do it. It's done before
Mhm.
the show starts because we only have a certain amount of time. But saging, making sure they're constantly cleansing their cards, cleansing their tools,
Mhm.
resting their card. Like there's a hygiene involved in this to make
Oh,
sure it's
wow.
constantly pure. Yeah, but nothing trumps your intuition. I mean, that is like the biggest tool you have is that gut instinct, that gut feeling, for sure.
Right. Yeah, I've been thinking about that a lot too. It's like intuition. Okay, people say that, but it's like, what does it mean? So it's like, yeah, it's your gut about something, that's important to know.
And it's never wrong. And I love my friend Tamara always says that people ask her, well, how do you know the difference between fear and intuition? And she always says it's simple. Fear makes sense. Sometimes your intuition doesn't make sense.
Right.
Because God's, God is low key kind of funny. He's low key a little funny. And he's a little savage too sometimes. And so he'll give you these feelings and these messages, and you're like, this makes no sense. And he's kind of like, LOL, just wait, be patient. And all of a sudden when it happens, you're like, oh, I get it now. Okay, that's what you were telling me. But also we have to understand that we are dealing with a human mind as well. And sometimes the human brain can't see beyond what it can see. It's
Right.
hard for us to understand the workings of the divine because we are on a third density planet. And so we're in a very dense world. And so you
Right.
just gotta trust your gut. If your gut
Mhm.
tells you don't go to the grocery store right now, don't go to the grocery store right now. If your gut tells you I don't like this person, listen to that. There's something that God is trying to tell you.
Right. No, that's a good way to look at intuition. Yeah. Yeah. I was wondering, I was like, how do I figure this out?
How do I know if I'm just crazy? And I'm just kidding.
So yeah, I go back to the whole crazy question. Am I
I know.
crazy?
If you're asking yourself if you're crazy, you're probably not, because crazy people don't ask if they're crazy. So
So what can we ask about intuition? Is this intuition? Is this my stomach saying this?
am I just in a bad mood? Yeah, no, I think that's been taken, that ability has been just robbed, especially for women.
Yes.
I mean, ladies, how many times have you had a gut feeling about something and your boyfriend or husband or friend has just said, are you about to get your period?
Oh my gosh,
know?
yes. Oh.
You're just hormonal, and you just want to smack them like, no, they've done that intentionally because the intuitive arts is part of the divine feminine, and men carry this as well. The divine feminine and masculine is found in both people, both sex, sorry, to the left, both genders, the two genders. You feel both of those energies, even though women are mostly represented by the divine feminine, obviously, but that intuitive arts comes from that divine feminine.
Oh, okay. Well, that's good to know. Well, then I have it. I just don't know how to use it.
You just trust yourself. Like if you don't feel right about something, even if you can't, you don't have to answer to anybody. Like I think that's something we need to learn as well. Like you don't
Right.
have to answer to people. If you say no means no. If your
That's
gut's
true.
telling you not to do something and you say no, you don't have to explain yourself.
True.
No means no. That's your sovereignty. So,
Right.
and regardless of whatever it is,
Mhm.
if you don't have to explain yourself. You just say no.
Right. Right. No, that's a good point. Very good point.
You don't say, well, my gut's telling me this. I know it sounds crazy and I don't know what, you don't have to, you just say no.
That would probably be me. I'd be sitting there going, oh.
I know. That was mostly a lesson for me because I'm that way. I feel like I always have to like explain myself, and many
Right.
people in my life have been like, you don't have to explain yourself. Like you're no or yes are good enough,
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I gotta remember that. Make your yes be yes and your no mean no.
No, like people will say, well, why? Because I said so. Because I said no. I'm not, that's that I don't consent. Like you don't have to give an explanation.
Right.
You know,
Right. That's a good point. Very good. Good advice there,
sovereign.
Brice.
You're a sovereign being. Like you were given certain inalienable rights given to you by your creator. That's what our Constitution says. Like
That's right. That's right. Yep. Exactly. Very good points. Thank you. Awesome. Well, I don't know how long we've been going here, but this is fun. Do you still have time, or you?
Yeah, I've got like 10 more minutes. We can go if you want to. Yeah.
Okay, great. Well, I am curious. I've watched one of your videos on the blood types. You did a really good deep dive on the blood types and the importance of all those. And I don't know if you want to share any of that, or
That was one of my red pills. I think we take many red pills, but that is
right.
wild. I would say so. Some of the stuff looking back, hindsight's like 2020, and you start diving into like the blood types, and you're like, so if we all came from monkeys, how come we all got these different blood types? All of a sudden, like, just not adding up. Like you're like this all of a sudden. And I started with my own blood type because it first started off with me understanding that I'm Rh negative, which means that I don't have the rhesus factor in my blood. And there's only 15% of the world's population that are Rh negative. And there's some gnarly side effects to being Rh negative.
I am too. I'm Rh negative too.
Oh yeah. Okay. There's a lot of us in the some people say Rh negatives have a harder time being programmed. Maybe that's why, because there's a lot of people who are Rh negative that are awake right now.
Nice.
And there's some gnarly side effects to being Rh negative. And when I first started looking into it, I was like, oh, like this explains so much. I was like, oh crap, this explains so much. I mean,
right.
Extra vertebrae, low body temperature, astigmatism, which they say is astigmatism, but it's actually like your eyes shaped a little differently.
Yeah.
Most Rh negatives are blonde hair, blue eyed, or green eyed. That's not necessary. You can't have, but that's very
common. I have green eyes.
Oh yeah, blue eyes, very fair. A lot of redheads are Rh negative. We know I'm O negative, so that means I have no antigens in my body.
Me too.
Yeah.
I'm
so
negative too.
And I stumbled upon information on DuckDuckGo, because Google won't tell you this,
right.
that the O negative blood type is considered the pure blood of the gods. Now, I hate to use the word gods. That's what they use, lowercase g. Okay. I think what they mean, it's the pure blood of like extraterrestrial, basically. Or I've also heard that the O negative is the blood type that came from Atlantis as well. There's nothing in the blood. So as O negatives, like in a practical medical sense, we are the universal donors.
Right.
Everybody can take blood from us, but we can only take blood from other O negatives.
Okay.
That's it. And another thing about Rh negatives, for women who are Rh negative, have a hard time with pregnancy. The body, if your husband or your partner is an Rh positive and the baby is Rh positive, it can be difficult for a woman to carry the child. Sometimes the woman's body will try to abort the child. My sister is also Rh negative, and she's had the multiple shots. 2 of her kids are Rh positive, 1 is negative, but she was able to have all her kids, but she had to have medical intervention to help her bring her children into the world, basically, because her body was going to try to reject babies.
Did she have, by any chance, sorry to interrupt you, did she have the Rogaine shots or
I have
Rogaine?
no idea. I have no idea, but I know she was getting the shots to help her carry her children.
Okay.
But she was able to, but that tells you something. If a Rh negative woman body literally rejects the baby that has the rhesus factor in it, what does that tell you? It's a different species, is what it tells you. And that's what a lot of the
Wow.
scientists study called they literally were calling Rh negatives a different species.
Wow.
Because they don't have that rhesus factor in their blood. They're also Rh negatives are also, it's more likely for them to have spiritual experiences. So Rh negatives, and a lot of that comes to the stigmatism, that they're able to see things that other people cannot see. Of course,
Wow.
Matrix wants to tell you astigmatism, put glasses on, don't look. But a lot of Rh negatives have found that they're able to kind of actually see beyond the veil.
Hmm.
And then you get into so an A type, an A antigen is a type 1 human. So if you're A positive, you're type 1 human. If you're A negative, you're type 1 human plus the blood of the extraterrestrials. If you're a B type, you're type 2 human. B positive is type 2 human. B negative is type 2 human plus blood of the extraterrestrials. But people who are positive could have a parent who is negative, so they are still carrying that molecular structure of off-worlders or wherever it comes from. I mean, the rabbit hole is so freaking deep when it comes to this. I cannot even I literally, because I first started off with the Rh negative stuff, and then I was like, wait a minute. If there's something interesting about the Rh negative bloodlines, then I believe all of us are special. So then there's got to also be something interesting about these other B positive, B negatives as well. Or
Right.
there's got to be something about all blood types.
Right.
That we know that the Jesus strand, the Yahshua blood type, was AB negative, which is the rarest blood type of all. So you're type 1 human, type 2 human, plus blood of the extraterrestrials, or whatever you want to call it. So
Right.
it's very, very, a lot of Rh negatives have a real hard time kind of adapting to environmental stuff. And that might be because our whole earth plane has been compromised by what they're putting in the air, all that kind of stuff that the blood types are having. I believe that a lot of the DNA stuff that they were doing was they were looking for
those DNA companies I never did that. I never had that done, but
stupidly I did, but at this point they're owned by the good guys now, so it's not that big a deal. But
okay.
but yeah, they were looking for certain blood types and certain bloodlines. So
Gotcha.
we all come from a bloodline, all of us, and so it's just figuring out. So what I would suggest for people, if you want to start to kind of get into who you really are, figure out what your blood type is.
Mhm.
And then do a deep dive on it, whether it's A positive, A negative, B positive, B negative, AB positive, AB negative, O positive, O negative. Do a deep dive on that. I've kind of talked about all of them on my on my channel. I've got a breakdown of what you could eat, like your personality types. But I would definitely suggest everybody looking into, and if you don't know your blood type, just call your doctor. It should be on your medical records. And also you can order blood testing kits. And it's super easy to do, and it'll tell you exactly by you have to prick your finger, and it'll kind of show you where your antigens are and stuff. So I would definitely, I would highly suggest everybody doing that, because again, you're special, and part of your complexity is your blood. In the book of Jubilee, we know that they value blood. We know that.
Yeah.
The book of Jubilee, the book of Jubilee actually talks about the sacred DNA in the blood. Your blood is your sacred DNA.
Nice.
And they instruct you over and over and over again not to blood.
Right.
Which 10 years ago, we would be like, why are people doing that? Now we're like, oh, people do this. Right. Oh, this is actually a thing. This is actually a thing. So it's in the book of Jubilee. So if we know that they know this is important and they do that, then one of your superpowers now is to figure out why your blood is valuable for you.
Right. Good point. Yeah, it's interesting you talk about that, because my husband is A positive, and all three of my kids had jaundice when they were born. And the doctor told me that's ABO incompatibility. And I don't know. I mean, it's been a while, but they had jaundice. And my one daughter had it really, really bad, like she was yellow from head to toe and she had to be in the hospital. And then I had to have those Rogam, or however you say it, shots after each pregnancy. And, look, I need to look into that deeper, to see what that's all about. But I just thought that was interesting. You're talking about your sister, and it's just like, wow, there's connections there that I need to look into. So I don't know if you knew anything about that.
It's fascinating, isn't it? And I was jaundiced when I was born, and my mother is B negative. My father is O positive. So I got the O from him and I got the negative from her. And the reason why I was able to get, because obviously one of his parents is negative too. That's how it kind of works, like a recessive gene. And my sister's also negative. So it's quite amazing that both my sister and I came out rhesus negative with a positive parent, but my sister's B negative.
Oh, okay.
So, and her youngest child is B positive. My middle niece, her middle daughter is negative, and then her oldest one is positive. So it worked out with her because where one was. But a lot of rhesus negative people are born with extra organs. I have an extra urinary tube. It's not that fancy. It's just an extra urinary tube. I know somebody who's Rh negative who has an extra kidney, which is really handy. Like if you got an extra kidney, like you hit gold. Like that's really handy. I just have an extra urinary tube, so there's not really much fancy you can do with that. But from your kidney to your bladder, you each have one of my sides has two and one on the other. But
you never know when somebody would need one.
I know, right? Do they do those transplants? Like, I got one. If you need one, I have an extra one. But the person I know that's got the extra kidney, I was like, wow, you are freaking valuable. You in your own, and she's O negative too. So obviously, organ transplants, you have to look at blood types too. And so she can give her kidney to basically anyone.
That's true.
One. So, so a lot of negatives have that. They have the extra organs.
Right.
So
right.
We're freaks.
Woo!
I know.
Oh well, we're still loved though, right? Even though
I know, we're definitely aliens. We're wanted. Yeah, I know. Well, all the elites are Rh negative. They all want to be Rh negative. And I think it's because you do have a certain sensitivity to the spiritual world when you're Rh negative. And so they utilize that for their benefit to kind of control us more. And so I think that's why they're looking for more negatives, is for their nefarious plans. But, we now have Rh negatives on the side of good that can fight fire with fire. So all of our presidents have been Rh negative. That's a trip. All of our presidents have been Rh negative.
Oh,
yes.
Wow.
And now I'm going to say this too, because I want people to understand your blood type, your last name, none of this means anything when it comes to your character and who you are as a person. We all have free will. So if you're born with the bloodline that is like one that's valued by the bad guys, it doesn't matter. You have free will. For example, we know that from the Joshua blood type was AB negative. Well, Obama was also AB negative. So it doesn't, as far as like your value as a person, it doesn't matter. Your actions and your character are what matter. But you can utilize personality traits from your blood to help you be a better person, to help you understand yourself more so that you can really live your true self. So I want people to know that, like, regardless, it doesn't matter what your last name is. It doesn't matter. Your actions are what define whether you are of the light or not. So, yeah,
that's a very good point. Yeah, that's good to remember. Yep, your actions and your free choice, free will. Yep.
Yeah, because both Obama and Jesus got the same blood, and they are very different. So,
oh wow, yeah, that's interesting to think about.
Polar opposites. So
total opposites. Yes,
same blood type, polar opposites in action. So,
oh my, yes, totally.
Don't ever. I mean, I know most of us probably have some ancestor that was involved in Freemasonry or the dark cult. Doesn't matter. Like, don't feel like that's a stain on you as a person. You are individual. You make your own choices. So I don't want anybody to feel that way because of something they can't control. You didn't pick your blood type. God gave you the blood type that you needed to help you be the best version of you could be.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Very good. Awesome. Well, that's a great way to end.
Yes.
Great way to end. So anything else you want to say before we stop?
No, just love yourself and know you're special, guys. Like, this is it. This is why all the mind control is they want to control you because they're afraid of you, and just laugh at them.
Yes.
That's just laugh. We've been getting that a lot in our prayer and channeling, is that God's telling us just laugh at them. That'll disarm them. Laugh at them.
Laugh, joy, yes, laughter and joy for sure, definitely. Yeah. And the best is yet to come. Just absolutely remember that.
Best is yet to come, guys.
Yep, exactly. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for joining us. This was a lot of fun. Thank you, thank you, Brice, for joining us.
Thank you, Cheryl.
Yes, and we'll see you again soon. Take care.
Yes.
Bye.
Bye.